Welcome to this audiobook experience of Believe in Yourself. Find a quiet space, put on your headphones, and allow yourself to settle in completely. Close the door on the outside world for a while, silence any notifications, and give yourself permission to be fully present. Let the words wash over you without rushing to analyze or judge them. This is your time to explore the depths of your own mind and discover what has been holding you back and what can propel you forward. Today we begin our journey into the heart of the book with the chapter titled The War Between Self-Doubt and Self-Belief. Imagine for a moment that right now, as you listen to these words, there is a silent battle raging inside you. It is not a battle fought with weapons or armies visible to the eye, but one that plays out in the quiet corners of your thoughts every single day. You have felt it in those moments when exciting opportunity appears and something inside you whispers that you are not ready, not good enough, or that failure is inevitable. You have sensed it in the late hours when you lie awake, replaying conversations or decisions, wondering if you should have spoken differently or chosen another path. This is the war between self-doubt and self-belief, and it is the most important conflict you will ever face because its outcome determines whether you live a life of quiet regret or one of bold fulfillment. Most people spend their entire lives unaware that this war is even happening, letting the enemy win by default while they chase external achievements that never quite fill the emptiness within. But you are different because you have chosen to listen to this chapter, and that choice alone signals the first crack in the armor of doubt. Picture the battlefield of your mind as a vast and intricate landscape shaped by years of experiences, expectations, and hidden fears. On one side stands self-doubt, an invisible enemy that wears the familiar face of your own voice, speaking with authority as if it knows you better than anyone else. It tells you to play it safe, to avoid risks, to settle for what is comfortable even when your heart yearns for more. On the other side rises self-belief, quieter at first, but infinitely more powerful, waiting for you to nurture it until it becomes an unshakable force that propels you toward the life you are meant to live. This war is not abstract or distant. It is happening in the choices you make about your career, your relationships, your health, and your dreams. Every time you hesitate to speak up in a meeting, every time you scroll through social media, comparing yourself to others and feeling smaller, every time you abandon a goal because the voice of doubt grows too loud, the battle tilts in favor of the enemy. Yet the remarkable truth is that you hold the power to shift the balance. Self-belief is not a gift reserved for the lucky few. It is a skill that can be cultivated, a muscle that grows stronger with deliberate practice, and a choice you can make in any moment, no matter how many times doubt has won before. As you continue listening, allow yourself to feel the emotional weight of this conflict, because acknowledging it is the first step toward victory. You may notice a tightness in your chest or a familiar knot in your stomach, as these ideas touch on private struggles you rarely share with anyone. That discomfort is valuable. It means you are confronting the invisible enemy directly rather than letting it operate in the shadows. For too long, self-doubt has masqueraded as realism or humility, convincing you that shrinking yourself is the responsible thing to do. It has stolen your energy by replaying past mistakes on an endless loop and projecting worst-case scenarios into an uncertain future. Meanwhile, self-belief sits patiently, ready to remind you of your inherent worth, your unique strengths, and the vast potential that still lies untapped within you. The central truth of this chapter is that this war is winnable, and the moment you decide to engage fully, the tide begins to turn. You are not broken or defective for experiencing doubt. You are human, navigating a world that often amplifies insecurity through constant comparison and pressure to perform. Understanding this war deeply will equip you with the awareness and tools to emerge victorious, transforming not just how you think, but how you live every single day. Now let us explore the first dimension of this conflict by turning our attention to the invisible enemy living in your mind. This matters profoundly because until you recognize the subtle ways doubt operates within you, it will continue to sabotage your efforts without you even realizing it. Understanding its tactics is the foundation for reclaiming control over your inner world and creating space for belief to flourish. The invisible enemy living in your mind is a master of disguise, operating so seamlessly that many people mistake its voice for their own intuition or common sense. It speaks in half-truths and familiar patterns, drawing on past disappointments to build a convincing case against your ambitions. Psychologically, this enemy is rooted in the brain's natural negativity bias, an evolutionary survival mechanism that once helped our ancestors avoid danger, but now keeps us trapped in cycles of hesitation and self-sabotage. It thrives on cognitive distortions such as all-or-nothing thinking, where one setback becomes proof that you are fundamentally incapable, or catastrophizing, where a single uncertain outcome balloons into total disaster. You might recognize it in the way it whispers during moments of vulnerability, reminding you of times when you tried and fell short, using those memories not as lessons, but as chains. Yet the enemy is not invincible. It loses power the moment it is brought into the light of conscious awareness, because awareness allows you to separate its voice from your true self. Consider the story of Ethan, a talented architect in his mid-30s, living in a bustling coastal city. Ethan had always dreamed of starting his own firm, sketching innovative designs late into the night with genuine passion. But every time he considered taking the leap, the invisible enemy would rise. It reminded him of the one project in college that received harsh criticism from a professor, replaying the feedback until it overshadowed years of positive results. It pointed out colleagues who seemed more confident and connected, making Ethan feel perpetually behind. The enemy convinced him that striking out on his own was reckless, that he needed more experience, more savings, more certainty. For years, Ethan stayed in a stable but unfulfilling job, watching others pursue their visions while his own sketches gathered dust. The internal struggle exhausted him, creating a constant, low-level anxiety that affected his sleep, his relationships, and his overall sense of purpose. One evening, after another long day of designing someone else's dream, Ethan sat with his thoughts and began to question the voice that had guided him for so long. He realized it was not protecting him, but imprisoning him. This recognition marked the beginning of his transformation. By naming the enemy and challenging its claims with evidence of his competence, Ethan slowly started taking small steps toward independence. Within 2 years, he launched his firm, and the projects that followed brought him a level of satisfaction he had never known. Ethan's journey illustrates how the invisible enemy operates through familiarity and fear, yet how shining awareness on it can dissolve its grip and open doors to authentic achievement. Building on this foundation, it is essential to examine why most people never reach their potential, because understanding this widespread phenomenon helps you see that your struggles are not unique and that breaking free is both possible and profoundly rewarding. This exploration connects deeply to your own journey by revealing the hidden costs of living below your capabilities and motivating you to choose differently. Why most people never reach their potential is a question that reveals uncomfortable truths about human nature and societal conditioning. Deep within the psyche, a combination of comfort-seeking tendencies, fear of judgment, and unexamined limiting beliefs creates a gravitational pull toward mediocrity. Psychologically, this stems from the brain's preference for energy conservation and the avoidance of uncertainty. The familiar path, even if unsatisfying, feels safer than the unknown territory of growth. Most individuals remain trapped because they never fully confront the internal narrative that tells them they are not destined for extraordinary things. They settle into routines that provide security but slowly erode their vitality, watching dreams fade into distant memories while convincing themselves that this is simply how life works. The tragedy is that potential does not disappear. It waits, often manifesting as restlessness, quiet dissatisfaction, or a nagging sense that something essential is missing. Take the experience of Sophia, a dedicated teacher in a quiet suburban town who had always harbored a passion for writing children's books. From an early age, Sophia crafted stories that delighted her students and family. Yet the voice of doubt consistently steered her away from pursuing publication. She told herself that the market was too competitive, that she lacked the right connections, and that her responsibilities as a single mother made such ambitions impractical. Year after year, she poured her creativity into lesson plans, while her own manuscripts remained hidden in a drawer. Colleagues and friends often praised her storytelling gift, but Sophia internalized the idea that true success belonged to others. The internal conflict created moments of deep frustration, especially when she read stories by authors she admired and recognized that her own work held similar magic. One particularly challenging school year, after supporting several students through personal hardships, Sophia realized that her hesitation was not only limiting her, but also depriving young readers of stories that could inspire them. This insight sparked a shift. She began writing consistently in the early mornings, submitting her work despite rejections, and eventually secured a publishing deal that brought her immense joy and financial independence. Sophia's transformation shows how the choice to remain small is often a gradual surrender rather than a single decision, and how reclaiming potential requires confronting the stories that have kept you confined. With this understanding, we now turn to the origins of self-doubt, a crucial step because tracing its roots allows you to dismantle it at the source rather than merely managing its symptoms. This topic matters because it frees you from the illusion that doubt is an inherent part of your identity and reveals it as a learned response that can be unlearned. The origin of self-doubt often traces back to early experiences where messages of inadequacy or conditional worth were internalized, shaping the foundational beliefs that govern adult behavior. Psychologically, this process begins in childhood when the developing brain absorbs feedback from caregivers, teachers, and peers, forming core schemas about personal value and capability. A critical remark, a comparison to a sibling, or repeated emphasis on mistakes over efforts can plant seeds that grow into towering obstacles. These origins are compounded by cultural narratives that equate worth with achievement or appearance, creating a pervasive sense of never being enough. The result is an inner critic that operates automatically, filtering experiences through a lens of skepticism and self-protection. Yet origins are not destiny. By examining them with compassion and objectivity, you can rewrite the narrative and build a new foundation rooted in evidence of your resilience and growth. Consider the journey of Lucas, the software engineer raised in a family that prized academic perfection above all else. As a boy, Lucas excelled in mathematics but struggled with creative subjects, leading his parents to focus intensely on his weaknesses rather than celebrating his strengths. Comments like, "You need to work harder on this," or "Your sister never had trouble with that," became internalized as evidence that he was fundamentally flawed in certain areas. This early conditioning followed him into adulthood, where even after developing innovative solutions at work, Lucas hesitated to share his ideas in meetings or pursue leadership roles. The origin of his doubt created a persistent fear of exposure, making him play it safe despite clear competence. A turning point came during a company retreat when a mentor noticed his quiet brilliance and encouraged him to present a project. Preparing for that presentation forced Lucas to confront the old stories from childhood. He began journaling about specific instances where he had succeeded despite doubt, building a counter-narrative that gradually diminished the power of those early messages. Over time, Lucas stepped into a senior role, leading teams with confidence and innovation that surprised even him. His story demonstrates how understanding the origins of doubt allows for targeted healing and the construction of authentic self-trust. Next, we examine how fear steals opportunities, because recognizing this mechanism helps you protect your potential from being eroded by avoidance and hesitation. This insight is vital as it empowers you to act despite fear rather than waiting for it to disappear. How fear steals opportunities is one of the most insidious aspects of the war, as fear disguises itself as prudence, while quietly closing doors that could lead to profound growth and fulfillment. Psychologically, fear activates the amygdala, triggering a fight-or-flight response that prioritizes immediate safety over a long-term reward. This ancient mechanism, while useful in genuine danger, becomes maladaptive when applied to modern pursuits, such as career changes, creative risks, or vulnerable conversations. Fear steals opportunities by amplifying perceived threats and minimizing your resources to handle them, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where inaction leads to regret and further doubt. The cycle is vicious yet breakable through repeated exposure and reframing, where each small, courageous act builds evidence that you can handle discomfort and emerge stronger. Emma, a marketing professional in her late 20s, living in a vibrant university town, faced this dynamic when offered a chance to lead a major campaign for a startup. The project aligned perfectly with her skills and interests, promising visibility and advancement. Yet fear gripped her tightly. It whispered that she might fail publicly, damage her reputation, or reveal herself as less talented than colleagues believed. Memories of a previous project that faced unexpected challenges fueled the anxiety, leading Emma to decline the opportunity with a polite excuse about workload. In the months that followed, she watched a peer take on a similar role and thrive, experiencing deep regret that manifested as increased self-doubt and diminished motivation. The stolen opportunity haunted her until she decided to seek out smaller leadership experiences to rebuild her confidence. Through deliberate practice, including volunteering for presentations and seeking feedback, Emma gradually desensitized herself to the fear response. When another significant chance arose, she embraced it fully and delivered exceptional results that propelled her career forward. Emma's experience highlights how fear operates by narrowing your vision to potential loss while obscuring potential gain, and how consistent action can restore access to the opportunities that matter most. Continuing our progression, we now focus on breaking the habit of negative thinking, a transformative skill because habitual thoughts shape your reality more powerfully than most people realize. This section connects to your daily experience by offering concrete ways to interrupt patterns that have kept you stuck. Breaking the habit of negative thinking requires understanding that thoughts are not facts, but mental events that can be observed, questioned, and redirected with practice. Psychologically, negative thinking often becomes automatic through repetition, strengthening neural pathways that make pessimism feel natural, and realism feel like optimism. These habits drain energy, distort perception, and maintain the dominance of self-doubt in the internal war. The good news is that neuroplasticity allows for rewiring at any age. Techniques such as cognitive reframing, mindfulness observation, and deliberate gratitude practices create new pathways that support self-belief and emotional resilience. Consistency is key, as each interrupted negative thought weakens the old habit and strengthens the new. Nathan, a financial analyst balancing a demanding career and young family, had fallen into a deep pattern of negative thinking that colored every aspect of his life. After a series of professional setbacks, his mind defaulted to worst-case scenarios about his performance, his parenting, and his future stability. Mornings began with mental rehearsals of potential disasters, leaving him exhausted before the day even started. This habit strained his marriage and distanced him from the joy of watching his children grow. A conversation with a close friend prompted Nathan to experiment with interrupting the cycle. He began pausing when negative thoughts arose, labeling them as mental noise rather than truth, and replacing them with balanced perspectives grounded in past successes. Over weeks of practice, including evening reflections on 3 specific things that went well each day, Nathan noticed a shift in his energy and outlook. Projects at work improved as his focus sharpened, and his presence at home became warmer and more engaged. Nathan's journey reveals how negative thinking is a habit rather than an identity, and how small, consistent interventions can yield remarkable changes in both mindset and life circumstances. We now delve into the psychology of confidence, because understanding its true nature demystifies the quality many admire and reveals it as an attainable state rather than an elusive trait. This knowledge directly supports your growth by showing how confidence can be cultivated systematically. The psychology of confidence rests on the interplay between self-efficacy, past mastery experiences, and social persuasion, demonstrating that it is not fixed but responsive to deliberate inputs. Deep psychological research shows that confidence grows through accumulated evidence of competence, vicarious learning from others, and managing emotional states effectively. It is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward alongside it. Many people wait to feel confident before acting, but the reverse is true. Action generates confidence, which in turn fuels further action in a virtuous cycle. By focusing on controllable factors such as preparation, skill development, and positive self-talk, you build a reliable internal source of assurance that withstands external challenges. Charlotte, a graphic designer transitioning to freelance work after years in a corporate studio, struggled with fluctuating confidence that left her questioning every decision. She admired peers who seemed naturally assured but felt her own self-assurance evaporate under client feedback or tight deadlines. Drawing on psychological principles, Charlotte began documenting small wins, reviewing past successful projects before new pitches, and seeking constructive input from a supportive mentor. She also practiced power poses and affirmative statements grounded in reality before important calls. These practices gradually shifted her internal experience. When a major client project presented unexpected complications, Charlotte drew on her growing reservoir of evidence and navigated the challenges successfully, securing repeat business and referrals. Her story illustrates how confidence is built through intentional psychological strategies, rather than waiting for perfect conditions or innate talent. Building further, we explore rewriting your inner story, a powerful process, because the narratives you tell yourself determine the chapters of your life yet to unfold. This topic is essential as it places authorship firmly in your hands. Rewriting your inner story involves shifting from a victim narrative dominated by doubt to an empowered one centered on growth, resilience, and possibility. Psychologically, humans are natural storytellers, and the dominant narrative shapes perception, emotion, and behavior. An inner story filled with themes of inadequacy or inevitable failure creates corresponding experiences, while one emphasizing agency and learning generates momentum and fulfillment. The rewriting process requires honest examination of current chapters, identifying limiting themes, and consciously authoring new ones supported by evidence and aspiration. This is not positive thinking alone, but a grounded reconstruction that honors past difficulties while focusing on future potential. Alexander, a restaurant owner who had built a successful local establishment, only to face near collapse during an economic downturn, found himself trapped in a story of defeat. His inner narrative emphasized personal shortcomings and bad luck, leading to withdrawal and despair that affected both business decisions and family life. A period of reflection prompted him to reframe the experience as a chapter of resilience and adaptation rather than failure. He gathered evidence of past recoveries, consulted mentors, and began scripting a new story centered on innovation and community connection. Implementing changes such as new menu concepts and local partnerships, Alexander not only revived the restaurant, but expanded it into a thriving gathering place. His rewritten story infused him with renewed purpose and inspired his team. Alexander's transformation shows the profound impact of changing the internal script on external reality. Now we address trusting yourself when nobody else does, because this capacity is often where true breakthroughs occur and self-belief solidifies against external resistance. This lesson matters as external validation is unreliable, making internal trust essential for sustained progress. Trusting yourself when nobody else does requires cultivating an internal compass strong enough to withstand skepticism, criticism, or silence from those around you. Psychologically, and this involves developing secure attachment to your own judgment through repeated validation of personal intuition and values. It means distinguishing between helpful feedback and noise that reflects others' fears rather than your potential. Many transformative achievements began in the face of doubt from family, friends, or colleagues, proving that external consensus is not a prerequisite for success. The process strengthens self-reliance and reduces dependence on approval, freeing energy for meaningful action. Isabella, an aspiring environmental scientist working in a traditional research institution, faced significant opposition when she proposed an unconventional study on local ecosystem restoration. Colleagues dismissed her ideas as too risky and unproven, while family members encouraged her to stick with established paths for job security. Despite the lack of support, Isabella trusted her vision and the data she had carefully gathered. She pursued the project independently, securing small grants and collaborating with like-minded individuals outside her immediate circle. The results exceeded expectations, leading to publications and invitations to speak at conferences. Her self-trust not only advanced her career, but also inspired others to question conventional thinking. Isabella's journey demonstrates the power of internal validation in overcoming external doubt. We continue with turning failure into fuel, recognizing that this alchemy is central to long-term success and the ultimate defeat of self-doubt. This perspective transforms setbacks from threats into essential components of growth. Turning failure into fuel means reframing setbacks as rich sources of information, resilience, and motivation, rather than evidence of personal deficiency. Psychologically, This shift involves post-traumatic growth principles, where individuals extract meaning and strength from adversity. Failure highlights areas for improvement, builds emotional stamina, and often clears the path for better aligned opportunities. By analyzing failures constructively, extracting lessons, and celebrating the courage to attempt something difficult, you convert pain into propulsion. This process weakens doubt by proving that missteps do not define you, but refine you. Benjamin, a software developer who poured months into a startup idea that ultimately failed to gain traction, initially spiraled into self-recrimination. The collapse felt like confirmation of his deepest fears about competence and timing. After a period of reflection, Benjamin chose to dissect the experience objectively, identifying strengths in his technical execution and areas where market research and customer validation could have been stronger. He used those insights to pivot toward consulting work that leveraged his skills while allowing time for a new venture. The failure became the catalyst for more focused, customer-centered approaches that led to subsequent successes. Benjamin's evolution illustrates how embracing failure as a teacher accelerates progress and deepens self-belief. Finally, we arrive at the moment you decide to believe, the pivotal turning point where self-doubt loses its dominance and self-belief becomes your guiding force. This decision matters because it is the culmination of all prior insights and the beginning of profound personal transformation. The moment you decide to believe is not always dramatic or accompanied by fanfare. It often arrives quietly as a firm internal commitment after accumulated awareness and small victories have prepared the ground. Psychologically, this decision engages the prefrontal cortex in overriding automatic doubt responses, establishing new default patterns of thought and action. It represents a shift from passive endurance of internal conflict to active authorship of your life story. In this moment, you choose evidence of capability over echoes of past limitation. You affirm your worth independent of outcomes and commit to nurturing belief through consistent practice. The decision creates a ripple effect, influencing choices, relationships, and opportunities in ways that compound over time. Grace, a community organizer who had spent years supporting others while doubting her own capacity to lead larger initiatives, reached her moment during a period of personal reflection after a community project succeeded beyond expectations. Despite encouragement from those she helped, Grace had minimized her role until the cumulative evidence became undeniable. In a quiet evening alone, she decided fully to believe in her vision and abilities. This choice led her to launch a broader program that impacted hundreds of families, bringing her deep fulfillment and recognition she no longer needed for validation. Grace's experience shows how the decision to believe integrates previous lessons into a cohesive, forward momentum. As you listen, consider where your own moment of decision might be emerging. It is available to you now, built on the insights we have explored together. This decision does not end the war, but equips you to win it decisively, day by day. With belief as your foundation, you step naturally into the next phase of this journey, becoming unshakable.